Hi, I'm Shmuel Silverman, CEO and founder of Multi Innovation. You're listening to IP Fridays.
Hello and welcome to this episode of IP Fridays. Our names are Ken Suzanne and Rolf Claessen, and this is the podcast dedicated to intellectual property. It does not matter where you are from, in-house or private practice, novice or expert. We will help you stay up to date with current topics in the fields of trademarks, patents, design and copyright, discover useful tools, and much more.
Welcome to episode 99 of IP Fridays. Can't believe we are already at 99 and next month we are celebrating our 100th episode of IP Fridays. Thank you very much to all listeners who made this possible. Today's interview guest is Shmuel Silverman, CEO of Multi Innovation and mentor of the Big Ideas competition at UC Berkeley. And we talk about his very special approach of creating value with patents. Before we jump into the interview, I have some news for you. Some of you may know that I'm founder of the website IP Newsflash, where I'm compiling news, decisions, and communications from the different courts and patent offices in the IP field. And I have just transferred this website to the publishing house FFI in Germany. They will relaunch this website and I help them make this a big success. So if you want to head over to www.ipnewsflash.com. Another thing is BREXIT. I know a lot of you can't hear this word anymore, but I just want to give you the latest news about how to deal with trademarks and designs. Patents is not a big issue because most things just stay the same. The UK will still be part of the EPC, the European Patent Convention. So what happens to trademarks and designs? If you are owner of a EU design or EU trademark, then on the day of Brexit, this seems to be automatically converted for free to a UK right, whether there is a hard Brexit or soft Brexit or whatever Brexit. And this new national right will have the time rank of the EU right. So if you have a EU trademark, then this will be converted to UK trademark with the time rank of the filing date of the EU trademark. The UK rights will also inherit any priority or seniority dates. If you have filed an EU trademark or EU design that is not registered at the day of Brexit, then you will have 9 months after the Brexit to refile this right in the UK and you will get the time rank of the earlier filed EU design or EU trademark application. Another thing that I wanted to tell you is that the German Patent and Trademark Office issued new guidelines for the examination of patents. So if you are prosecuting German patent applications, then it might be worthwhile to have a look at the new guidelines for examining patent applications in Germany. Now, let's jump into the interview with Shmuel Silverman. Today, I'm very excited to have Shmuel Silverman on the show. Shmuel is CEO and founder of Multi Innovation, a company who is consulting about IP value. He is an inventor and IP strategist who helps companies of all sizes, large or small, to create strategic patent portfolios that can protect their overall value proposition and not just the technology. And that's one of the core ideas of his business, right, Shmuel?
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being on the show. Can you add a little bit and talk a little bit about your background and what you're currently doing?
So first, thank you for having me on the show. I'm very excited being here today. A little bit about my background. My first startup was in 1984, so I'm kind of old. After that startup, which was successful, I moved to Motorola, and it's one of my positions, Director of Advanced Technology and Strategy in Motorola, created plenty more startups within the company that were successful. But I've also realized through that process, while working with brilliant people, we've realized that the way we invent and create technology needs to be more intentional as opposed to just do it as a research and try to protect anything we find in research. So I've learned much in Motorola, and this is what I bring as my passion today to the world, which is invent with intention. Create patents that truly counts for others and for you.
Typically, companies just, IP or patent departments just go into the patent attorney at the company just goes to the developers and the researchers, say, okay, what did you invent? What did you just develop? Let's patent this. And you are probably coming from the very other side, right? You are not protecting the technology that is developed, but uh, explain a little bit more about your
Okay.
your
So,
idea, basically.
Let's look at the entire development process for a second. So a normal development process in most companies on the planet would be, I've got this great idea, or I've got a problem that needs to be solved. You talk to the technologists, they come with some technology strategy, and they start to develop it. And exactly now, the IP department is getting involved and ask them, okay, so what have you invented? This kind of process is about 3 to 4 years before even you start to get good IP coming out of the technology. So let's backtrack. You've identified a problem in the market, and now you and 50 other companies competing on delivering some value or value proposition that solves something, either the entire problem or some of the problem. Therefore, you end up with multiple technologies that all of them are protected and all of them competing in the market against you, showing up about 4 years later. What I'm proposing and the process that I'm taking companies or people or suggest people to go with, not necessarily with me, they can do it themselves, is start with understanding the value proposition, identify what can deliver on this value proposition, identify as well what are the common key technologies to all of what can deliver the solution to this space and protect just those key elements.
Hmm. Okay, so you don't go into the company and say what value do you have, what value to protect, but you go into the company and see, okay, what are you working on? What is the core value of your company and how you can create basically the value, right? Or
Yes,
right.
yes, I asked them why our clients are paying you.
Hmm.
Why is there value? Why are you getting this thing? What? And then this is what I want to protect. So if you start, if you start with a new value proposition, or you want to bring something that doesn't exist out there, it's not bring value to the client. I'm not talking about bringing technology.
Hmm.
First and foremost, I actually do not care for the technology to begin with. I care for clarity about value proposition.
Hmm.
And where there's no clarity about it, you can't actually deliver value to your client, and I don't care what you protect at that point. I'll give you an example, if you may.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Let's think about the early days of smartphones. So everybody were looking for, I don't know if you recall, in the 90s, everybody was looking for what is the killer app? What is the killer app? What is going to sell the most smartphones? And of course, in Motorola, we thought it was voice. Voice, okay, but voice, everybody had voice. So what is the killer data app that will sell data? People thought it would be email. But I think the conversation was wrong to begin with. Because we didn't think about what the clients want. What we thought about is, or how to capture the largest market segment. What we thought about was what is the killer app? So we were still mired in technology, as opposed to think, who are our clients and how do we increase our client base?
Mm.
And that question Apple asked. Apple asked, okay, Apple's strategy was and you can listen to Steve Jobs and others speaking in the mid and late 90s. 1997, there's a beautiful interview with Steve Jobs that he actually mentioned it very strongly. It says, our core value is user interface, client satisfaction. Anybody can use our systems. So they thought about, okay, so how do I address an entire market from a 4-year-old to a 95-year-old? How do I expand the market? How do I build a solution that all of them can use? And this was the user interface. And by the way, which is protected with about 7 or 8 patents, if I recall, based on the lawsuit between Apple and Samsung in the US. So with about handful of patents, they protected the entire core value proposition. And they are the number one dominant phone in the market worldwide. And if Samsung wants to do anything, they must go through Apple.
Mm.
So if this is kind of like an example. So value proposition and core value and asking the right question, this is where you start. This is how you protect the business. The technology comes next.
Right. Unfortunately, the patents really are completely, the focus in patents, in patent claims and so on, is protecting a certain new technology. So that would seem like, for me, I don't really grasp your idea completely yet. So you say, okay, look what the clients want and try to work on the client satisfaction and see what they want. And then that is the value that you can bring to the table, right? And protect and create this value for your company by going into what the client wants, right? That's what, do I understand
It's it,
correctly?
it's figure out what is your value proposition
Mm,
and what is the value proposition that you want to protect. Then the second thing is, of course, we cannot patent value proposition.
mm,
We cannot patent business processes, but what we can do is patent technology. But at the end of the day, technology is an enabler for that value proposition.
mm,
So the companies, well, let me backpedal one step back. Not every value proposition can be protected. Some value
mm,
proposition just cannot. And I'll explain in detail later on. But value propositions that are driven by technology, meaning technology is the enablement, a way to protect the value proposition is, instead of protecting one technology that deliver on it, you can protect all of the technologies that delivers on it.
mm.
But then you need to be Apple, you need to be Google, and you need to be IBM, and you need to create 8,000 patents a year.
Right,
Most companies can't afford it.
right.
So now we need to play smart. So you look at the value proposition. You need to bring and put around the table people from multiple from multiple fields that can enable it. So there are multiple different technologies that can enable your value proposition. Then through the strategy process, you focus on what is common, and there
Mm,
could be 1, 2, 5, 10, and you protect only those 1, 2, 5, or 10 different elements that are common to all of them.
right. Okay.
This is where
So,
you start.
right. And so that would be an idea, like a theory or a principle that also smaller companies like startups could follow. They don't need to protect 7,000 patents or file 7,000 patents, but just look for the 7 or 8 or 10 core ideas that are common to all the products that we want to make the customers happy with, and then focus on these core elements, right?
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So, if there are some, some basic principles of your work habit, basically how you go into the companies, how you teach them, like what are the core principles that you are teaching to your clients, like how to create the value and not just protecting the existing technology or the researched technology?
That's a good question. Almost every company is different, and different industries behave and think differently. Um, they will always come back to me and say, "Hey, I've got this beautiful business, and here's the technology, and here's what I do." And I'm listening patiently, and then I say, "Great. Here's another way to do it." And this is where they stop. So every time you see a technology that enables something, except for in pharma is a different animal, and we'll talk about pharma and chemicals. It's just a different world. But besides pharma and chemicals and the that is protected by legislation and so forth, so there are other wrinkles that needs to be in the strategy. Everything else goes through the same thought process, which is here are all the other ways that I can do it. And once I bring one way, usually they're brilliant engineers and brilliant thinkers themselves, and they say, oh, and there's another way, and there's another way, and there's another way. And this opens up the conversation and opens up the understanding of, wait a minute, if I protect just this one way, I'm missing all the other ways. So how should I go about it? And for a startup or for a small mid-market company, this is a huge advantage, advantageous way of thinking. So they no longer say, "Oh, I'll copy protect what I just did," which is great. You can copy protect what you did. That's your decision, and you can take lawyers for this. This is not me. But if you want to think strategically, then you'll protect the true value of what you bring.
Mm.
And
And can you like this is too abstract for me, sorry.
I'll
Or very abstract.
give you examples.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have examples
Yeah.
like a smaller company or a larger company, and then maybe pharma and chemicals, like how they are different or
So,
something like that?
pharma and chemicals, it's a completely different world. I'm not sure I want to even step into it in this conversation, and I think
Okay. Let's leave this
it
out.
it
Just
it, it
maybe how the
requires an
situation would
entire.
be in like a right.
Large companies already give you one example, which is, I believe, with the iPhone. Another example for large company can be, or not so large company, medium-sized company, was actually introduced in one of your previous interviews, which was about Dyson.
Mm.
Dyson they looked at the world and said, wait a minute, we want to enter this space. We are not going to capture the entire space, but there are ways to be more effective and efficient when it comes to suction and so forth with regard to vacuum cleaners. So how do you enter an industry that is already mature and existing for so many years, and you change the game for them? You look at what is the value to the client. They notice that number one problem is that the suction drops after like very quickly within few months of the use of the device, and say, you know what, we can compete. We can create a device that will not cost us more or the client more, but still give him so much more value. Therefore, we're going to create our own space in that niche, and they patent that. And this was their cyclone system. Another example, which is a much smaller client with a startup, and because I already have the patents for them, I can speak about it freely, is in the smart lighting space. The smart lighting industry is kind of like interesting. It started with a big bang, and it's still a big industry to enter, but it moves quite slow. And when I started looking at with that client, we figure out that the number one problem in this industry will be installations. When you install lighting in a building, once you're done installing, you walk away from the building and the building is working. But when you install smart lighting, you need to associate all the smart lights with the lights themselves. And this adds another layer of somewhere in the area about 15 minutes worth of work per light. And as a company, we thought that one of the key value propositions, there are multiple, but this is one that we can actually control. And the way we'll control it, we will devise a way to do it fully automated, no human intervention. Therefore, you install the lights, you put the smart lights, and you walk away. And it all is going to work. Magic. Basically, it's a patent portfolio of 6 patents that protect complete auto installation of a smart lighting system.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else
Okay.
has it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you looked at the, let's say, 5 or 6 key ideas that are underlying this new technology, and then you protected these aspects in different patents, basically.
Yes. So there. In order to, we can go in very specific in this one if you want, and it is not going to take us too much time. And so it's like when a smart light is being installed, it needs to associate itself with the light itself, but it doesn't know which light it associates itself because there's no information on the light. Unless there is information. So if you use Li-Fi, you're already going to have some information. So you need to protect the fact that the light can communicate with a smart light via Li-Fi. But another way to do it is actually look at the other lights in the room and say, who are you? But those lights cannot tell you who they are. So the idea is you basically turn off all the lights and you turn the lights, not the smart devices, and you turn the lights one at a time, and the smart device can find themselves relative to their position in the room. And because you have a topology map of the building, you now know which light and which smart light are connected. This is kind of like the basics of it. Now there are a few different aspects of how to do that, and we captured all the key ones.
Okay, I see. So you help this startup company to, avoid just looking at the concrete, the products that they made and go the classical route to see, okay, I created this product, so the patent claim should be this product and not more. But you looked into the underlying core principles behind this technology and then divided them up to the 5 core ideas and then created the patents around these core ideas, if I understand you correctly.
Absolutely right.
Okay, so that could be easily transported to larger companies, right? So if they have core technologies that are common to many different processes, then they could protect their IP with just a lot fewer patents than compared to the classical route, where you would just patent each and every new product, basically.
That's the idea. In many cases, if you're a large company and you can afford it, you can add and create more layers. So, for example, Apple didn't just protect the user interface; they also protect all the different ways to connect to the iPhone. So now, if you're another company and you created something that connects to an iPhone, you have to pay Apple. So they basically create value income through their IP by forcing people who communicate with their device to pay them, and so forth and so forth. So you can create multiple layers. So you can create both protection as well as value enhancement through an IP portfolio.
And that's a good keyword. So you say you want to create the value of the company and not protect the technology of the company. And so the focus should be on creating the value of the company. So how would a company create an IP portfolio that drives the value of the company? So what would be the underlying principles behind
So
that? in your opinion?
For large companies is one thing, and for small companies it's different. So for small company, we need to think about how do they want to exit. Um, Most companies want to be bought by larger companies, and if they want to be bought by a larger company, we need to make sure that it's painful to go around their patent portfolio. So they need to create a patent portfolio such that a larger company cannot take $20 million or less than 2 years and just go and build it. Because if they can, they don't really need you much. And then they will pay you, but they will pay you for your work, but they will not pay for a big multiplier on you as a company. They start to build a big multiplier if what you've created as IP actually prevent them and others from entering that space. This is where the multipliers start to be interesting. So for small companies, creating an extremely effective IP is very important, even if they do not develop all this IP as products. And for larger companies, to protect those key elements, so you can participate. If anyone enter the space, you can go and participate via licensing and via, assuming you want to play nice. Or prevent big competitors, at least for some time, slow them down. And the longer you're alone in the market, the more money you make. Aka drugs and generics. Um, and further, you use your IP because large companies have the funds. They can also create defensive IP. Defensive IP is you actually look at what your competitors are doing and you create IP in their space, not necessarily something that you want to build. The only reason you create this IP is that you can have a nice negotiations with them when they come after you because you're doing things probably in their space too.
I understand. So you could also save large companies a lot of money with your strategy. When you go into a company as a consultant, you of course are hired for a project, and then if you leave, when you leave, then you hope that they will continue to create a sustainable development for their IP portfolio within the company. How do you make sure that they continue and go on to implement your ideas into their IP strategy?
So as a consultant or as a company, we offer all three steps. We offer an assessment, which is, can your value proposition even be protected? Not any can. If it can be protected, we offer a strategy of protecting it, and then we also offer a way to measure the effectiveness of that strategy. And then the third step is oversight on the implementation. So we communicate directly with the lawyers who are writing the IP and making sure that through the negotiations with either the USPTO or the European Patent Office or whatever, we do not miss something. Meaning sometimes there's a requirement to change language because something out there just popped up that we didn't notice or didn't know about, and we may lose the value of that IP. We need to be aware of it to be able to create something else or to use the correct language so we don't miss anything.
I also wanted to pick your brain on some new developments, if I can, if I may.
Absolutely, I would love to. Thank you.
The landscape in the lawyer or attorney world or in the IP world will change, I think, dramatically with when new technologies around artificial intelligence or legal tech are implemented more and more into the daily life of corporate IP departments or big law firms. Where do you see the journey going, or what are the what do you hope that will be, or where do you have fears? What will happen? How do you see this development?
So most of the systems that are coming to bear into that space have to do with cognitive. I mean, you can go with simple neural nets who will do pattern recognition and come with some really good proposals with regard to whether a claim is going to be sustainable over time or not, and how things are going to look like. But the next step, and the more important and scary step, is with more cognitive systems that can take a text that I would write as an engineer and create a patent out of it. I believe that those systems are just around the corner, but they are not here yet. I've seen some work with from IBM that has to do with assessing or understanding context within text. But I didn't see any company yet pushing it forward to get to take context into claims. But I think it's just around the corner. I mean, I'm expecting it to happen. For the AI industry to become a multi-trillion-dollar industry, this is one of the elements that will probably play cognitive and cognitive use will be a big player in that space. What
I think there's already like a startup in the US claiming that they can that AI can already write patents. So, I mean, it's there already. I think maybe that's not yet a perfect solution, but it will not take long
No,
to.
no, I don't think it will take long, but I think it's there, and and we should think about the following. Okay, so there are tools being developed by some people and maybe yourself that are going to provide really good value assessment with regard to the quality of the claim or claims or set of claims relative to whether they will be successful or not if it goes to judgment or to courts. And then there's a tool who can actually create those claims. If you marry the two, you end up with a very strong tool of, okay, let's write the following few claims, and if they get very high, qualification, then great, let's submit it as a patent. So at that point, you can have practitioner or lawyers just becoming technicians with an oversight on all of those tools and making this happen. And over time, the value is changing. I think we've asked lawyers not to invent. Their job was just to take something and make it legal for us. And by doing so, now that this part of the job may go away, we need to figure out other good ways to utilize, because they're brilliant, they're smart, and they may need to be trained differently going further.
Yeah, you say something really right. I mean, a lot of patent attorneys, especially, it is a very conservative business, and a lot of them think of themselves like, okay, I'm writing excellent claims and so on, I'm the best. And maybe that will change in the future because AI will take over, maybe not. And I think it will be more and more important to just be a good consultant about IP strategy and to tell, especially like not so large corporations that don't have an in-house IP department of like 200 people or so, smaller or medium-sized companies, to consult with them like how they optimize their IP protection. So it goes more into like being really a business consultant from being a claim writer.
I completely agree, and
Right.
this is kind of like this is exactly what I consider. This is what I train people basically to, and this is what I'm advocating. Think about the business and how do you protect the business. The
Right.
IP and the technology are just means to an end. You use it.
Mhm.
This is not the end game. This is just the tool.
Yes. So is there anything big coming up for you? What is your next plan, your next big thing that you are launching or thinking about?
As I'm working, as I'm doing, I'm evaluating and working on strategies with people and helping people, set the right direction for the business and their value proposition. I was also experimenting with, can I measure that? Can I measure the quality of the strategy? How do you measure the quality of the strategy? There are plenty of ways out there to measure a quality of a patent, and many tools, including Patent Asset Index that you've was one of your interviews last few weeks in the past, and other people are doing it. Some of them, expose their process, some not, but I didn't see. It doesn't exist any index that I'm aware of that is taking the value proposition, truly understanding the value proposition, taking the entire use case of how to derive this value proposition, and figuring out how well your patent portfolio protects that use case and value proposition. That's and this is something that because I need it, I'm in the process of building and in process of assessing it with VCs, and I wonder and so that's for me it's a huge problem to solve, and but very exciting problem to solve, and if any one of your audience of this program wants to participate or talk or converse about and think about, or wants to be a field trial for that, more than welcome. I'm looking for volunteers.
All right. Yeah, that's a probably good audience here. We have a couple of thousand downloads each month, and
Beautiful.
let's see. There must also be some people who would be interested in this.
I believe it's a game changer. It doesn't replace patent valuation, no, but it does give a very strong tool to figure out whether I want to invest in this company or not. Investors are going by, most investors that I know, I don't know all of them, but most investors that I know, they look at the technology and they look at things and say, yeah, that's great. The market is great. But you know what? I really trust the people who are running the show, the guys, the founder and the team are strong, etc. This is another tool to basically tell them, not only that, but they have the chance to create some IP that not just protect their technology, because you don't have a big multiplier on that anyway, but actually protect their business. And that's in my humble opinion, a very strong input that can be a game changer for investors as well, and for companies and for startups in this field.
So, if people wanted to chat with you about that, or have any questions about your ideas that you introduced in our interview, where could they contact you best?
Well, they can contact me through my website. I also give a 1 hour a month open Q&A. You can ask me any question about anything that we deliver, and it's to talk to me is free. I do not charge for any. I love to talk to people. I love to run ideas by people. I love to be open about everything. This is a beautiful world, and I want us to change it. I want us to develop and to create patents with intention, and the intention is business.
So, can you just spell your website so people can find it?
Yes.
And of course, I will also link it in the show notes, but just for the
Perfect.
people who are just listening in the car or something, maybe they want to. Yeah.
So they can send me email to Shmuel, which is SHMUEL at multi-innovation.com. Multi-innovation.com is spelled as MULTI dash innovatation.com. So innovation as it sounds, multi as it sounds, and a dash in the middle.com.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, and the website would be multi-innovation.com, right?
Exactly.
Yes. Well, that has been a very interesting and for me, new way of thinking about creating IP and creating value for the company. Thank you for being on the show, Shmuel.
My pleasure, Rolf. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you.
That's it for this episode. If you liked what you heard, please show us your love by visiting ipfridays.com/love and tweet a link to this show. We would be so grateful if you would do that. It would help us out to get the word out. Also, please subscribe to our podcast at ipfridays.com or on iTunes or Stitcher.com. If you have a question or want to be featured in one of the upcoming episodes, please send us your feedback at ipfridays.com/feedback. Also, please leave us a review on iTunes. You can go to ipfridays.com/iTunes and it will take you right to the correct page on iTunes. If you want to get mentioned on this podcast or even have comments within the next episode, please leave us your voicemail at ipfridays.com/voicemail. You have been listening to an episode of IP Fridays. The views expressed by the participants of this program are their own and do not represent the views of, nor are they endorsed by their respective law firms. None of the content should be considered legal advice. The IP Fridays podcast should not be construed as legal advice or legal opinion on any specific facts or circumstances. The contents of this podcast are intended for general informational purposes only, and you are urged to consult your own lawyer on any specific legal questions. As always, consult a lawyer or patent or trademark attorney. Copyright 2014, all rights reserved.